that story coming up. Starts now. TP isn't up.
ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
I'm LaDon Davis and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news tonight, we begin tonight with news from Grand Bahama as that island's Ebola contingency plan said to be a model for the Bahamas should the deadly viral disease show up on our shores. A tour was held on the island for representatives of the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization today as they visited Grand Bahamas' main ports of entry. Shashina Rowe reports tonight that the officials were very impressed with the protocols that are now in place.
Grand Bahama Island receiving positive feedback from representatives of the Pan American Health Organization as well as the World Health Organization after a tour of the island's main ports of entry. A delegation led by the Minister for Grand Bahama, the representatives from the local and national Ebola task force team, as well as others spent hours on Sunday visiting the Rand Memorial Hospital, the Freeport Container Port, and the Grand Bahama International Airport. The Minister for Grand Bahama says the purpose of the tour was for PAHO representatives to look carefully at the Ebola protocols in place here on the island and ensure that they meet international standards.
I was very pleased to hear that some of the protocols that we already have in place, they're world class. Because of the nature of Grand Bahama and the size, we were able to put these together, and apparently they are receiving excellent recommendations. And so there's a possibility that some of the things we already have in place can be used in other countries to particularly protect their ports and the airport.
Dr. Roberta Andrangheri of the World Health Organization and Regional Advisor to PAHO in Washington, and Dr. Jerry Eckerman, Director of PAHO and the World Health Organization in the country, agree that preparedness is key in fighting Ebola.
I think that the flexibility demonstrated by the authorities of Bahama, of the country, in addressing and sort of making the best out of these unfortunate circumstances is really commendable.
More than anything, we are there to work with you, and really the Bahamas is on the very, very right track in getting ready, and particularly Grand Bahama. I'm impressed by what I've seen today.
Coordinator of the Ebola Task Force, Dr. Frank Bartlett, says he was also impressed with the port of entry's protocols should a patient arrive on the island with Ebola. This week, the task force is planning to hold an intensive health education program on the viral disease.
We look forward this week to beginning our educational component in earnest. The things that we learn, the lessons that we learn, the things that we discuss will be applied, and we look forward to working together to make sure that our Ebola response is the best possible response for the region of Grand Bahama.
Minister Darville says representatives from PAHO and the World Health Organization will also be making recommendations.
Of course, there are some additional recommendations that were brought forward to us, and under the leadership of Dr. Bartlett and Dr. Paul Ward, the Chief Medical Officer at the Rand Memorial Hospital, we're going to go back now, we're going to look at these recommendations, we're going to incorporate them in our protocols, and we will definitely report back to the media as well as the general public of our findings, and to ensure them that all the steps that we are taking is for the safety of the community and to protect our tourism sector as well as to protect our port and our airport.
Shashina Roll, ZNS Network News.
Before the Ministry of Foreign Affairs diplomatic week ended, the government hosted the Foreign Service to an official dinner at the Balmoral Club under the theme Beyond Independence and Boldly into the 21st Century. The inaugural event assembled 23 non-resident ambassadors from Asia, Africa, Europe, and North and South America, and our 12 heads of mission and 9 of the honorary consuls. It was also announced at Friday night's dinner that Cabinet approved the Foreign Service orders adopted as official government policy effective December 15th. This paves the way for the creation of a discrete Foreign Service alongside the traditional public service. Under this new regime, those who work in the Foreign Service will be governed by Foreign Service orders and not the rules of the Public Service Commission. The government is scheduled to table a new Ministry of Foreign Affairs Act in Parliament when it convenes on November 19th. And welcoming the diplomats, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie detailed its government's commitment to supporting and strengthening our country's foreign service.
During the past 2 years, the government has provided additional resources to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to meet the additional demands made on the Foreign Service, including increases in operational expenses and the underwriting of new initiatives. The goal of the Bahamas in moving forward is to establish diplomatic relations with all the member states of the United Nations, as differences in economy, polity, and society ought not to constrain us from interacting in a friendly manner with all states.
Inaugural medals were presented to long-serving Foreign Service officers at the Diplomatic Week dinner Friday. Among the honorees were Protocol Director Andrew McKinney, who was awarded the Lyndon Pendling Medal for Leadership, and Dr. Patricia Rogers, who received the Janet Bostwick Medal for Women in the Foreign Service.
I'd say that I have immense satisfaction and pride in having been able to build a few bridges of friendship and cooperation, and also to have a part in laying a foundation for the operations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I represent the first generation of Foreign Service officers who were recruited prior to independence.
And I learned protocol from within my home. Proper manners, proper way of standing, how to do things proper. That's what I'm all about, and that's what the Protocol Division is all about.
Still on news from Diplomatic Week, honorary consuls from countries where the Bahamas cannot offer diplomatic representation on a professional level provided a full report on events that transpired over the year in their respective districts. Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell explained how significant their service is to this country.
They often do the work of paid diplomats, although the work is unpaid. The ministry provides, in some cases, a subvention. In other cases, it's entirely volunteer. For example, in the Caribbean, we have Mr. Selwyn Smith, Mrs. Alveda Knight, and Dr. Monica Davis in Barbados, in Jamaica, and in Trinidad, respectively. And students depend on these three people in those three areas. They're large student communities, Bahamian student communities, and they depend on these honorary consuls. If anything goes wrong, anything happens to them, if someone gets in jail, if there are problems at the school, these are the people they depend upon.
Mr. Mitchell says the Bahamas is now looking at expanding its range of honorary consuls around the world.
We've just gotten approval for an honorary consul in Chicago, and he's here. So that's a first. We have applications that are active for honorary consuls in the city of Houston. That was just approved. Mr. Lyndon Rose is to get that post. And then there is an application for Denver and an application for Los Angeles that we're hoping for. We're also considering Singapore at the moment and Hong Kong. So this is quite active diplomatic work, and we really thank them for all the work they do on our behalf.
Chairman of Bahamas Air Valentine Grimes is optimistic about the future of the financially strapped company. Over the years, the national flag carrier has been considered a huge financial burden on government, but Grimes told those attending the Airport Airline and Allied Workers Union installation banquet Friday night that things are looking up. He said, though, the next 18 months will be critical to the airline's success, and called for a better relationship between management and the union.
We are still a long way off from where we need to be, and it's important to all of us that at the end of the day we have an airline providing a level of service that we are satisfied with and that Bahamian people are satisfied with. That will not happen and cannot happen unless we have the full support of all the members and the staff of Bahamas Air.
Minister of Labor Shane Gibson shared similar sentiments but called on management not to neglect its side of the bargain.
Sometimes management believe that if they ignore the union, they'll go away. And so for all of the organizations that come under my portfolio as Minister of Labor, I would encourage management and encourage the employers to meet with the unions on a regular basis, to share information, to make sure that they are fully informed as to what's going on in the organization, so whenever they come to negotiate, they will have all of the facts. Because sometimes we present some of the facts, and it causes them to believe that they can get things that really isn't there.
With the government looking to bring legislation to Parliament that would govern oil exploration in the country soon, officials at the Bahamas Petroleum Company remain confident that the Bahamas has all of the ingredients needed for a successful discovery of commercial oil. In fact, they've already close to $100 million in preparation. We get that story tonight from Cieska Adderley.
The Bahamas Petroleum Company has spent nearly $80 million in the Bahamas in the pursuit of oil exploration to date. BPC CEO Simon Potter says the company is currently reviewing its well design, which he estimates will cost approximately $60 million to construct. If BPC is successful in discovering commercial oil, Potter believes it will dramatically transform the economy.
We would take roughly a year to plan the operation. That's mainly to make sure that all of the activities are coordinated, all of the various different contractors and suppliers that come together. But inevitably, when a rig comes to town, there's quite a chunk that's actually expended locally within the community. We'd look for logistical support, we'd look for engineering support, and of course all of this is based upon bringing a crew backwards and forwards. They would transit through the Bahamas, so in terms of hotels, it generates a significant boost to the economy.
Potter applauded the government's intent to bring legislation to Parliament designed to regulate the industry. Once passed, Potter says BPC looks to partner with another company to drill. As the commercial project develops, Potter says it will provide options for economic diversification.
As part of the legislative package that the government has identified, they've identified the fact that they would like to introduce a sovereign wealth fund. Now, of course, in the event of a successful commercial discovery, what the government does with its revenues is entirely up to the government. But again, as we've discussed, some of the feedback that I get from the family islands is the extent to which this fund is going to be used or whatever. So certainly the government articulating its intentions to preserve some of that wealth, not for this generation but for future generations, is entirely to be supported.
Earlier this month, Environment and Housing Minister Kenrick Dorset announced the proposed regulations would seek to ensure oil exploration in Bahamian waters is undertaken in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. He said it will also be consistent with international standards, best practices, and the most up-to-date risk management, health, and safety protocols. As a company, BPC's CEO says they're committed to balancing risk and reward. The company, meantime, is currently conducting environmental sensitivity maps. Cieska Adderley, ZNS Network News.
And when the weekend edition continues, celebrations marking the Girl Guides centennial anniversary underway, you're watching the Bahamas Tonight Weekend Edition.